Hello and welcome to Compounding Curiosity. I'm your host Kalani Scarrett, and this podcast is all about compounding your curiosity alongside my own through thoughtful interviews with interesting guests. For transcripts and detailed show notes, check out the links in the description. Hopefully you're as keen as me to learn something new, so let's get stuck in. Perfect. Alvin, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. But maybe just we'll start small, and can you just give me a background sketch, maybe your life, and then we'll dive into the details from there.
Okay, so born and bred in Malaysia, so grew up all my life over here. Live a pretty normal life, to be honest. But I think life has been really a roller coaster ride, right? Especially, once I hit the crossroads of, hitting, my university days, where, a lot of people are confused then, like, okay, what should I do, right? Like, that's going to be the determining, side of my life. Like, that's what I'm going to be doing for the next 30 years or so, right? And so there's a fun fact here. So I graduated as a pharmacist, right? So I was in the medical line, but I never practiced, right? So I decided to, okay, you know what? I don't think this is for me, even though I spent 4 years, studying, graduating as a pharmacist. Never really got there. Eventually went to, healthcare insurance, employee benefits, healthcare management, which is sort of related, but not really in the pharmacy vertical. And from there on, dabble on a few things in regards to that, and started my life as a startup founder, which is where the roller coaster actually started, right? So that was about 7 years ago. And, and that journey has been going on for up to today. And yeah.
So why startups, and why healthcare startups? How do you make that? Because that's a big jump. So how do you get stuck into it?
Yeah. So I think everything is probably accidental, just like everything else in life, right? So for me, I was already in the healthcare industry, saw that there was an opportunity to solve a huge problem, especially in healthcare. Never knew of the term startup until I was in a startup kind of thing, right? I always thought about, it's a company. I'm starting a company with my co-founder. We're solving problems. And that's where the kind of, exposure for us to really be able to go into this world that, things can be solved faster if you can do this, hyper growth, fundraising. So, it's really more of that kind of trajectory that really got us. It was really accidental, I would say. We just wanted to start a company, then it actually became a startup, and we are where we are today.
I've got a very limited background in healthcare. I did a few years after I turned 18, just with phlebotomy and stuff. But how hard for you has healthcare been to crack into? Because it's pretty complex. It's highly regulated. Plenty of old established players. How do you go about changing?
Yeah, I won't lie. It's definitely hard, right? I think compared to a lot of other industries, like you mentioned, healthcare, it's not just age old, right? And also, heavy regulations. There's actually a lot of power players inside healthcare. Now, most of the bigger industries like pharmas or hospitals, they are really, really huge, right? They're billion-dollar industries, and it's actually very, very hard to change that. So for us, what we did was we didn't want to go heavy and very general, right? So we end up choosing a vertical instead to really want to solve, right? And that was really more on the healthcare financing vertical, right? Rather than solving, stuff on the diagnosis side, on the pharma side, we actually ended up saying that, there's actually a big problem in healthcare financing side as well. That's how we actually got into it. And we slowly snowballed, into where we are today by working with the right people and being able to use the right kind of leverage to then influence the rest of the other, stakeholders as well.
So yeah, I've read a bit about HealthMetrics, and you've stated the mission is to optimize healthcare costs for all. So for a total healthcare noob, what aspects are right for organization, and what are you trying to shake up, I guess?
Right. So maybe I'll just explain a little bit about what HealthMetrics actually does, right? So that will give a lot of context to things. So for us, we are right now a B2B healthcare startup, right? That we actually build platforms for companies to manage their employee health benefits efficiently by directly connecting them to stakeholders, such as healthcare providers and insurance companies, and also other wellness and health type of companies as well. So why did we do this here is because we realized that there was actually a lot of issues when it comes to trying to manage costs. As there were a lot of parties involved, right? So previously for companies, when they like to really, get a health insurance plan for their employees, what happens here is they got to work with the broker. The broker's got to work with the insurance company. The insurance company got to work with the hospital. Like there's a long chain of events, right? And there's a lot of these inefficiencies there as well. So for us, we decided to say that, okay, why don't we give power back to the companies where they can actually choose not just to, buy insurance, but to self-fund their benefits program as well. That's where they get the most savings by getting this platform to be connected to everyone, in the ecosystem. Healthcare providers will be connected to our ecosystem, insurance companies connected to our ecosystem, and they'll be able to make any form of changes that they like into the platform, which then gets translated in real time to all the stakeholders. And when there's any, let's just say, claims that happen, right, all this data gets transferred back to the companies as well, rather than being blindsided by all these other, intermediaries in the middle. So that's generally, in a nutshell, what HealthMetrics is doing. So in terms of what we're trying to optimize, right, following on that, what we realize here is companies don't actually have a lot of choice when it comes to really deploying their employee health plans. So a lot of it is being controlled by insurance companies. Now, I'm not bashing insurance companies. That's just how it works, right? So it's like they give you an insurance policy and there's not much you can do with it. It's like plan A, plan B, plan C. That's about it, right? So, and there isn't a lot of flexibility to it as well. So for us, we know that, in order for us to be able to make sure that there is more flexibility, we actually created this platform for them to then make all those rules and decisions that they need on the platform and pull out those things that they can self-fund themselves. So right now, we are one of the only hybrid platforms probably in the market. I cannot say for sure we are the only ones. So what happens here is they will be able to then decide, let's just say for outpatient programs, the GPs, the dentals and whatnot, they can actually self-fund those programs, and it's actually much cheaper for them to do so. And in terms of, let's just say that they like to deploy employee benefits for hospitalization, they can then use an insurance and everything gets connected. So whenever they upload information of employees on our platform, all this information gets disseminated out. So in terms of optimizing healthcare costs, we can then influence decision making from the healthcare provider side as much as negotiate on behalf with the insurance companies that, look, these guys would like to create a plan this way that could actually result in better premium pricing. And thus, we are trying to optimize healthcare spending across board by giving power back to the payers. I know it's a mouthful, so it's like so complex.
No, but that's interesting though, because I'm going back here. How do you even start? Because I don't know, if you're a tech founder, you might start with an app or a website. But for you guys, what started first? How do you even go about it? Yeah, what was the first beginnings like, I guess?
I think beginnings are always the most difficult, right? As a platform, the chicken and egg situation will always exist, right? Because it's like you got to get some people on the platform before another party comes in, right? So now, without healthcare providers or insurance companies, companies cannot really utilize our service, right? So we started off the journey by getting healthcare providers on board and tell them that, look, we have a platform that we are able to connect you directly to the companies without a need for insurance company to be involved, because a lot of them right now would like to deploy their employee benefits in a way by self-funding, right? So I'm channeling traffic, and that's where we actually got our first few believers when it comes to healthcare providers. And from there on, it kind of snowballed, right? The more healthcare providers we have on the platform, then companies will say that, hey, you know what? This is a service that I can get behind, I can use, right? And that's where they actually start coming in. And from there, when we have built a significant volume, we were able to then use this to also speak to insurance companies, which are giants in the industry, right? To tell them that, look, we have companies that would like to do and also purchase insurance, but using this method, right? Like for us to be able to negotiate on behalf. And that's where the ecosystem starts piecing together one by one, right? And like I said, roller coaster ride hasn't been an easy journey, but I'm glad we are where we are today.
Oh man, it's just like there's so many things going on. You're juggling everything, eh?
Yes, that's true.
So how many different stakeholders do you have to juggle? There's insurers, there's the companies themselves.
There's the healthcare providers as well. So today, just giving you some numbers, right? We're connecting more than 1,000 companies with 250,000, employees, right? Connecting them over to 5,000 healthcare providers already on our platform, with more than 6 insurance companies. So it's like a balance of sorts that, and it's a positive feedback loop. So the more customers we have, the more healthcare providers come on board. And the more healthcare providers come on board, customers will also want to use us, right? So it's like a positive, network effect.
Getting that snowball rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So now you've got some direction and you're sort of moving along. What's the biggest hurdle, I guess, you're facing? Like, what's the one thing that you're just like, I wish I could just get rid of that or change?
Right. So many, right? I think when it comes to healthcare, there's so many, right? But in terms of the top, I would say, I think it's something that is necessary, but regulations is never really a problem. But that's also where the problem lies, right? Because in terms of digital tech today, especially in our part of the world, Southeast Asia, it's still very gray. It's very vague. Nothing is a yes or nothing is a no. So there's always this risk where, everything gets clamped down and then we are declared illegal, right? And then part of the things that we are trying to do here is also trying to work with regulators to then say that, okay, how can we manage, data more proficiently, right? How can we actually then transfer these certain forms of information across board that is advantageous, that can ultimately save costs, right? So, and a lot of times when we actually speak to the authorities, and they don't know how to view us, right? They're like, I'll give you an example. Ministry of Health, in every jurisdiction and country, typically only manages like healthcare providers. If you're providing a healthcare service directly, you're under Ministry of Health, right? But for us, we are partnering with healthcare providers that provide healthcare services. Then the question is, where do we lie then, right? But are we processing healthcare data? We are, right? So there's a lot of this kind of things that we feel that can be better, and we're ready and open to work together if necessary. But this has always been probably the bane when it comes to, healthcare startups or even probably, healthcare companies in general.
Yeah, damn. I'm just trying to think, how do you even solve that? Like, is it just...
It's just there, right? It's just there. And never easy to solve. But do we want to solve it? Of course, we'd like to be able to engage, stakeholders more to be able to solve this.
Yeah, yeah. And to go back, when you first had the chicken and egg problem with getting providers and companies on board, you sort of self-describe as a bit of an introvert, I read. So how do you even get them to get on board in the first place? How hard do you find it?
Yeah. So I actually thought that being introvert kind of helped in my journey. So in a way where so what I realized was being in a B2B type of business where I'm not selling directly to consumers, that actually led me to think that, I was actually even more comfortable thinking about it because a lot of the conversations were more formal in the sense where, okay, I only need to focus on the problem. I'm selling you a solution. There are times of relationship selling as well, but it isn't as much as when you go B2C, right? So in a way, I found this zone of comfort where I know for a fact where I'm going in, I'm solving a problem for you. And if you do find value in it and you feel like you want to use it, then that's where we strike the deal, right? So I kind of actually got into that zone of selling in a form of manner that I know how to. There wasn't really a science to it in general, right? So for me, it's really that journey that really helped me to learn that, even as an introvert, I can do this if, let's just say, I do it in a way where I know how to do it. If it makes sense.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's exactly like a podcast. I chat and I ask questions, but I can't do this on the fly. I just know how to do this little thing.
That's true.
So, like, another different hat and another thing you juggle is obviously hiring. And in regards to a startup, and it's just, all things go. How do you manage that? And what do you look for when you're hiring people? And just what's that whole process like, I guess?
Right. Founding a startup is like I said, I can't say it's easy, but I can't say it's hard in a way because there's just so many challenges involved, right? I think as you rightly mentioned about hiring as well, it's constantly something that is evolving. I won't say that it's always challenging, but at different stages of the company, right, there exist different challenges for us when it comes to hiring, right? When it comes to hiring for us, we actually really wanted to experiment and try something new. I also believe that COVID has, in a way, helped us accelerated it. So previously, we were actually very Malaysia based in a sense where we were very localized, right? We can only look for people to come into the office, and it has to be in a certain area. If not, if this guy lives too far, right, or this person lives too far, it's so hard for this person to get to office and really work effectively, right? So right now, we are already consciously moving towards a remote first concept to be able to really expand our talent pool, to be able to then, tap on the global talent on that sense. And because we are tech enabled company, I mean, we are a tech company ultimately. So it is really good for us to practice what we preach, right? So in a sense, we are moving towards this where we can actually right now manage people in terms of a remote basis. And that has really helped us shorten the gap. But there are still roles that we need locally, which needs local office. So today we are in two countries, Malaysia and Singapore. We're going to a third country within the next few months. And these frameworks are all shaping together, and it's actually very important for us to be able to, do this.
Yeah. Any unexpected problems pop up with remote hiring? Like anything you didn't foresee, I guess?
I think it's always hard to be able to judge like characters or work styles when it comes to interviewing someone remotely, right? I mean, it's always harder as well because we tend to need to shift our mindset. Previously, it's really about how can we actually work together, remotely, and have meetings and expect people to be on time and things like that, right? So we've actually, instead of trying to shift the mindset of the person working remotely, we are actually shifting our own mindsets. We are actually asking ourselves, how can we do this better? How can we actually then measure results rather than measure time, right? So, and we are also moving towards like communicating asynchronously. Asynchronously means like, it doesn't matter which time zone you're in. It has to be posted in a way where I'm not expecting you to reply me right now, kind of thing, right? Yeah. So that's really how it is.
Oh, perfect. And if you could go all the way back to the start, you're just founding the company. Is there anything you'd tell yourself, like what not to do? Like what would you just totally avoid? Any big don'ts?
This is actually such a big question, right? That to be very honest, I find this question interesting because if I were to know, I probably won't start a company at all, right? It's like there's just so much hurdles, and as we cross along the way, right? So it's something that I always think about. But at the same time, rather than knowing what it is, because the list is just so long, right? I actually kind of appreciate, us being very naive back then, thinking that we can start a company and conquer the world kind of thing. And actually being able to solve problems as it comes along. And this actually holds true till today, because even today, I don't know everything, right? So in a way, today, whatever I'm doing, let's just say I'm managing 100 employees, right? Tomorrow it's the first time I'll be managing 101 employees, 102, 105, going to a new country, right? So that's really just what I think. I would do it all over again, not knowing anything, even if you give me the chance.
Do you have any mentors or people giving you advice, or people that you lean on?
Yes, definitely. I think we are only where we are today because of all the help that we were able to get. So it was actually pretty weird because for us, we always thought like, okay, we are entrepreneurs, we gotta like just figure this out ourselves, right? And what we realized here was there is actually a big community out there of mentors that are just willing to be able to provide this kind of information and also help, because they feel like they have also been helped before, right? And they're just giving back. It's like a loop as well. Now it makes us also have this feeling like, okay, you know what, whatever we learn, it's time to give back as well, right? So there was a lot of networks that we actually relied on. There was this local startup networks. We also actually joined Google Accelerator programs as well. There's also the Endeavor network we are actually part of, where they really have a full range of experienced mentors that even help us up to today.
Maybe just touch on the ASEAN region specifically. Is there anything, like any problems that are more prominent there, do you think? Like, are there any problems unique to the ASEAN region in healthcare financing and costs, do you reckon?
I think ASEAN itself is very unique already, right? So the culture itself, I think this is true not just for healthcare startups, but every other startup or every other company is trying to penetrate into the region, right? The culture, the language, how things are being actually done in those countries, right, will always remain like a mystery or black box until we unravel it. So I think that the challenges are all actually pretty similar when it comes to the ASEAN region, and the partners, the culture, how they work is all the same. Is all different, right? In that sense, and when it comes to regulations as well, that would probably also be one of our biggest hurdles. Just like what you're facing over here in Malaysia and both Singapore, right? It's also something that we need to unravel. We need to find out whether whatever we are doing, is it legal? Is it the right thing to do? And sometimes it's not easy, especially in the ASEAN region where everything is so, scattered, right? Like you want to get this information, you got to look for this department, you got to do this and that in different departments. And that's our experience so far. And it's never easy, but it's rewarding because once you're able to solve this, right, it becomes, in a way, a very high barrier of entry, right? So not anyone can just compete and come in and do the same thing because you have already done all the groundwork to be able to make sure that you can do it, right? So it's like a high risk, high reward play when it comes to ASEAN in general. That's just generally how I feel.
Yeah, I love it. And in regards to, I hope I'm not out of line saying this, but Malaysia and Singapore, same but different. But then the third country, you don't have to mention what country, but how hard has that been, that third country been going into? And do you go through local partners? Maybe just walk me through it.
Yeah. So we actually have a few countries already lined up. So for Singapore itself, we went in organically, right? Because like you said, same but different. The difference is actually sometimes not huge because Malaysia and Singapore shares a lot of history together, the language, the culture, how it actually all works. It's also pretty similar as well. We have healthcare providers and also companies that exist in both Malaysia and Singapore. So there's this kind of relationship going, right? So we decided to actually go into Singapore organically, where we can set up our base there, and we just carry over what we have learned over here, to implement over there as well, and being able to support over. But going to a new country, there's actually multiple ways. We are actually looking into working with local partners that has experience in the similar vertical as us, that can actually leverage off our technology, at the same time for us to leverage off their experience and also network that they have built as well. So this kind of synergy is actually very good. It's very synergistic for both companies to be able to work on this journey, because for us, going to new countries like that, it's definitely very resource heavy, as much as for the same local partner to build tech like ours, right? It's also resource heavy. So we kind of like marrying the best of both worlds, when we actually expand in that manner.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe to wrap up with, HealthMetrics, is there anything that we haven't talked about that's consequential about the future, do you think?
I think for HealthMetrics, we're very, very excited with being able to shape how healthcare, especially in the healthcare financing scene, right, that this can actually turn out to be. With so much kind of healthcare innovations out there, and us also being pushed to the forefront to actually influence this kind of decisions, right? We're definitely very, very excited to be able to be part of this journey for a very long time to come. We're probably not going to just stop in these 3 countries. We're definitely going to probably go to even more and see how we can actually marry all of this together.
So for you personally, what do you think is the most undervalued life experience that maybe university age students don't give weight to? So what do you think is an underrated skill or an experience that you think a lot of people should have?
Right. So looking back today, maybe I'll just use myself back as an example. So I actually look back and I kind of actually have regrets in a way where I didn't start off a lot of things earlier. There was always this kind of mental block where, you know what, I gotta wait for me to finish my degree, then only I can actually start something or start learning something else and whatnot, right? So, and I think the most undervalued thing right now is I feel like people can actually do so much more, even when they are actually in that, zone where people tell them you're too young, you have no experience and stuff like that. I think never limit yourself or have that kind of mental block, right? That is stopping you from learning a new skill kind of thing, right? So I think this needs to be told true to a lot of people, rather than just having a narrow tunnel vision or focusing on what you're supposed to be studying right now. Explore, right? The world is just so big,
Do you have any, or maybe just to follow up on that, how do you think maybe people get out of that mindset and start branching out? Is it just a slow burn type thing, or?
Right. I think the world that we live in today is just so different, right? I think last time for us to get new information and to get new people as a community was so much harder. Today, the world is so different where, information is like overload, right? People can actually learn all sorts of things online. They can self-study. And there's so much community-based things happening right now. Sometimes I go on Discord, right? There's just so many communities that is teaching each other stuff. And I think that is actually something that is how we start, right? You find areas of interest, you actually go to it. It's never a no. I see a lot of people doing what they have actually not studied very successfully. And there's always a continuous learning because they kind of overcompensate for it. So it's really more of a mindset change rather than where do I start kind of change, right?
Yeah, that's me. And no one starts an expert. You sort of learn on the job. So
that's true.
Have you had any books maybe that have been influential in shaping your worldview?
Yeah, there is actually. So when I was almost graduating, my dad actually passed me this book. It was actually a very random occasion. I think he just kind of like dig this book out of nowhere. He saw the book. Hey, you know what? This book is good, right? Because he actually read it a lot of years ago. Then he randomly just passed me and just, okay, son, you just read this book. It's going to help you in your life, right? And I just randomly picked it up and I read it. And yes, it did change my life because I just gone through it and it's great. And it actually helped me shape my mindset today. And the title of the book was actually Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a very famous book, apparently. I didn't even know it back then. But it's actually a book that really helped me shape my mindset to do something more than what I am or what I've actually studied.
So if you were 18 today, starting university again, or like where do you think the biggest opportunities lie? If you're 18, what would you be doing?
Right. Now it's hard to say, right? Because if I was not in healthcare, probably I think the entrepreneurial spirit is always going to be there. So for me, wherever I land, it's probably going to actually let me focus in that particular vertical about also being able to look for those opportunities where it lies and actually start something there, right? I always feel like there needs to be a freedom for me to be able to do what I want to do without real restrictions when it comes to solving problems. So if I were to start over again, it wouldn't be any vertical. So there's actually a lot of opportunities to solve a lot of problems, a lot of verticals. I have a lot of startup founder, peers, friends. They're all solving great problems, great opportunities that they are in. And yeah, I mean, probably I would just have the same journey depending on which vertical I land in.
Yeah, no, you love to hear it. And last question, what plans or vision do you have for the next 5 to 10 years? Like what areas are you most curious about going forward and what are you hoping to achieve, I guess?
Yeah, since I was actually in healthcare, I really actually enjoy where I am today, right? Never really actually thought I would enjoy healthcare in a way that I am right now, because healthcare is always, it's not very exciting. It's been there. It's always a need, not really a want kind of thing, right? But as I actually gone through this journey with HealthMetrics, I see that there's tons of opportunities to solve a lot more problems. And it's really a very rewarding feeling, right? Looking at how you're able to really help, not just as an entrepreneur, but as also like, a systems provider, right? On the sense of the tech side, is actually very rewarding, not just for me, but for my entire team and my co-founder as well. So even for the next 5-10 years, I can see myself doing what I'm doing right now. Of course, maybe at a different scale, but definitely still very much excited about the prospect of, wherever we are going to.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, at scale, it's so much easier to help more people, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Alvin, thank you so much for being on today. Anything else you want to plug or give a shout out to?
No, not much actually. Really want to see how this entire thing turns out. This is my first podcast, so yeah, thanks for breaking the virginity of my podcast session. But really looking forward to hearing this session out.
No, thank you so much, Alvin. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to check out the website compoundingpodcast.com. On the website, you'll find every episode complete with transcripts, show notes, and other related resources. If you want an email notification every time an episode releases, plus my lessons and takeaways from each episode, be sure to sign up to the Substack. So that's compoundingcuriosity.substack.com. Either way, links to all content mentioned today will be in the description below, and you can also connect with me on Twitter @ScarrettKalani. But until next time, have a good one.